Hello, everybody. This is my final presentation on the International Shark Fin Soup Trade (SES). So this is basically a three-pronged issue because, as it stands, we have the horrible practice of finning, highly endangered shark species, and enormous marine ecosystems at risk. So with that general problem statement in mind, I'm going to dive into each category of the SES, starting with the resource system. So the sharks that are most common in shark fin soup are generally in tropical and subtropical waters, somewhat near shorelines. So for specific species, the boundaries of the system are pretty sharp. However, the enormous size of the resource system is really what makes conservation and regulation difficult. And the most important aspect of the resource system is that the shark is an apex predator, so its decline is going to have major impacts on populations within its food chain. But researchers don't really know exactly how far reaching those effects will be. One current result that we're seeing is the closure of fisheries that harvest species within the shark's food chain. I'll move on to the unit now. The resource unit is the shark, and the driving force of this whole shark population crisis is the astronomical economic value of up to $50,000 for a single fin. And there are other biological aspects that exacerbate this enticing dollar amount. So sharks have a very low rate of reproduction, which makes them vulnerable to overfishing. And the ability for collagen to retain its structure and components dry allows fishers to stockpile the collagen fins and fish as much as they want without worrying about selling them fresh right away. There's also no distinctive marking on the dried fins, which makes the species of a fin difficult to identify. And that's why researchers are developing DNA tests for identifying sharks. The high urea content in the shark meat makes the body substantially less valuable than the fin. So this is why current shark fishermen have begun the practice of finning, or cutting the fins off of a shark and throwing the live bodies back in the water to die of suffocation. There were also purported health benefits in ancient Chinese medical books, but they obviously didn't allude to any specific compounds, and UN researchers have actually publicly debunked the claims and even spread findings that there are potentially dangerous levels of neurotoxins in shark fins. Moving on to the users now. The consumers of shark fin soup are generally Chinese, as China has the largest market for all dried seafood. And the dish has actually been around since the Song dynasty in the 10th century, but consumption was historically very limited because only royalty would eat it. However, the economic reforms of the 1980s created a much larger class of Chinese elite who were able to afford the soup, and that's what led to the unsustainable fishing practices that we're seeing today. It's highly embedded in the culture. It's expected at weddings and business banquets. However, its popularity is slowly decreasing in tandem with rising popularity in other delicacies at these events. So, although consumers of the soup are generally Chinese, sharks are fished internationally and exported to China. So, there's a large stakeholder population outside of China as well. And the conservation movement is partly responsible for the significant decrease in the shark fin soup market, which was a negative 25% in 2013. So that's a good news for conservationists. Finally, on to governance. There are two main groups of actors in the governance of this system. There are international organizations like the FAO of the United Nations, the Worldwide Fund for Nature, and CITES. And these types of organizations generally work through advocacy and lobbying governments, although CITES is actually a legally binding treaty that was ratified by 80 countries. And otherwise, there are national and state governments that really have more power to directly implement and enforce governance on the system. So in the last decade, we've seen a wave of national laws to completely ban shark fishing, a lot of bans on the sale of shark products, and stringent shark fishing regulations. And there have also been legislative efforts to decrease demand for shark fin soup, like the Communist Party of China's recent ban on shark fin soup at official state dinners, which will hopefully persuade the public not to consume it as well. So, in conclusion, sharks are very vulnerable species that are hindered by their ecological and biological characteristics and their cultural value to humans. The current state of shark fishing will lead to extinct shark populations and greatly disturbed ecosystems. Opponents of conservation stress the cultural value, though evidence is mounting that the Chinese public is slowly beginning to embrace alternatives to shark fin soup. This potential decrease in demand, combined with the recent successes of governments and international organizations, provides some hope for the future of the species. Thank you.